Atlanta just got hotter, and not because of the weather. Bambi, the queen of composure with a sharp tongue and an even sharper eye for disrespect, walked straight into a situation nobody saw coming. Lil Scrappy, the man she once called her. Husband now sitting across from his brand new wife, a woman glowing not just from the drama, but from a pregnancy. Cameras were rolling, emotions were primed, and fans were ready to break the internet. What happened next wasn't a fight, in the traditional sense. No screaming, no flipping tables, but words. Words cut deep. Secrets slipped out like knives in silk wrapping. And by the end of the night, this city wasn't just talking. It was dissecting every breath, every look, every tear. This isn't just gossip. This is a cultural event in slow motion, and every frame matters. #LHHATL, #Bambi, #Lil Scrappy at VH1, at Love and Hip Hop Paytel. The setting wasn't a club, wasn't a boutique, wasn't even a quiet dinner. It was one of those neutral spaces reality TV loves, a chic lounge with soft lighting, expensive water, and cameras tucked just out of sight but never really invisible. Everyone knew this wasn't a coincidence. Someone called this meeting, and someone else agreed, even though they knew it was going to hurt. Bambi arrived first. She wasn't in warrior mode. No loud prints, no flashy diamonds, just clean lines, a neutral palette. The kind of armor you wear when you don't want the other side to see the storm underneath. Her walk was steady, but anyone who's seen Bambi in ATL circles knows when. Her shoulders are that square. She's bracing for impact. Lil Scrappy walked in a few minutes later. His energy was nervous, a smile that didn't quite stick, a hoodie half-zipped like he wanted to be casual but couldn't quite relax. Behind him, she appeared, the new wife. The internet had been whispering about her for weeks, some defending, some attacking, but tonight she wasn't a rumor. She was here in heels, with a calm confidence that felt rehearsed but not fake. The air tightened immediately, not with yelling, with restraint. "Hey," Scrappy said, voice low, testing the temperature like a man dipping his toe into boiling water. Bambi didn't answer right away. She took a sip of water, set the glass down, and then finally, "We're really doing this here?" Her tone was flat, not sarcastic, not warm, surgical. The new wife spoke before Scrappy could. "We wanted to meet somewhere public. Neutral. No sides, no pressure, just honesty." That word honesty hit like a gunshot in a library. For a beat, nobody moved. The cameras didn't zoom in. They leaned in. Bambi leaned back in her chair. "Honesty. From y'all? Now that's new." Scrappy flinched. Not dramatically, just a micro-expression. The kind that says every word is landing like a slap. The conversation started polite, or at least strategic. Small acknowledgments of past wounds, careful phrasing about moving forward, little nods to co-parenting and respect. But underneath it all, you could feel it. The dam. It was cracking. "Let's not act like this didn't hurt, Bambi," finally said, leaning forward now, elbows on the table. "You built a whole new life while mine was still bleeding, okay? And now we're sitting here like this is brunch." Scrappy exhaled hard, looking down, looking up, trying to find a safe word that didn't exist. "Bam, it wasn't like that. It just happened." "I ain't trying to disrespect you, already did," she cut in, sharp, clean. No rise in volume, just authority. And then the shift. The moment that turned a tense conversation into an on-camera earthquake. The new wife placed a hand on her stomach. Not dramatic, not performative, just quiet, like a reflex. The cameras caught it. Bambi's eyes caught it. "What's that?" Bambi asked, eyes narrowing. The new wife glanced at Scrappy, then back at Bambi, and then, softly, like she wasn't sure if saying it would start a fire or end one. "We're expecting." Silence, not awkward silence, cinematic silence. The kind where you could hear someone's heart drop through the floor and echo back up the walls. Bambi didn't cry, not yet. She didn't scream. She blinked once, twice, then sat back, processing a hit nobody could brace for. Scrappy started talking too fast. We didn't plan to drop it like this, I swear. It's early, it's private, but we ain't want to lie if we was putting everything on the table. Bambi held up a hand, stopped him mid-sentence like a queen halting a court jester. Don't. Just don't. You think you're doing the right thing, but you just made it worse. The wife tried to interject. I'm not here to hurt you. I just wanted transparency. Bambi laughed. Not a happy laugh, a Yugatobi kidding me laugh. Transparency. Now? After all the back doors and the whispers, now you want transparency. The energy in the room shifted from fragile to dangerous. Not physical, emotional. You could feel decades of loyalty, betrayal, pride, and pain turning into static. Cameras caught every twitch, every clenched jaw, every glance toward the exit, like maybe walking away would save somebody from saying something they couldn't take back. And in that moment, Bambi made a choice. She stood, adjusted her jacket, looked straight at the woman now carrying her ex-husband's child, and said, "Congrats. Really, but don't mistake my silence for peace. This isn't over. Not by a long shot." She walked out. No scene. Number, thrown drinks. Just the quietest exit with the loudest echo. Scrappy stayed frozen in his seat, head in hands. The weight of 2 lives, maybe 3 now, pressing down like gravity itself had turned cruel. And in Atlanta, phones lit up. Group chats exploded. Blogs prepped headlines. Fans got ready to pick sides, because this wasn't just a confrontation. It was the opening act of a war nobody saw coming. #Bambi, #Lil Scrappy, #Love and Hip Hop, ATL. #ATL drama at VH1, at Love and Hip Hop PTL, at Adizdabam, at Real Scrappy sat there for a moment after Bambi walked out. Eyes still on the door, fingers tracing invisible. Circles on the table like the wood could absorb the tension. Cameras kept rolling. Production didn't dare call cut. Scrappy leaned back, let out a breath that sounded like it carried a decade of regret, and muttered, "I didn't want it to be like this." The new wife, let's call her Jay, 'cause the blogs were already spelling her name wrong 1,000 ways, finally found her voice. Quote, "It wasn't shaky, it wasn't rehearsed, but it wasn't careless either. She needed to know," Jay said, almost whispering. "It's not just about a baby, it's about respect. I can't be in this city, in this circle, carrying your child and act like she doesn't exist. That's not me." Scrappy rubbed his hands together, stared at the floor. "You don't understand. Bam, don't do halfway. Once she feels like you cut her, it's forever. And I did cut her." Over and over. Jay looked at him, her eyes the kind that ask silent questions no one wants to answer on camera. "Then why didn't you tell her before tonight?" Silence again, except for the faint hum of the lounge air conditioning and the clicking of someone's bracelet as a producer nervously twisted it. "She wouldn't take my calls," Scrappy finally said. "I ain't want to pull up on her. That would have been worse. And when you said you wanted to just put it out there, I thought maybe neutral ground. No screaming. I was hoping she'd see we ain't trying to make her small." Jay nodded, but not in agreement, more like acknowledgement of a storm she knew she couldn't steer. "Do you love her still?" She asked that question, unscripted, raw, froze the table. Scrappy blinked, looked off somewhere no camera could follow. "She's the mother of my kids. That don't switch off. Love's complicated, man. Can love somebody and no. You can't be with M no more." Jay inhaled, slow. "Then say that out loud. For her, for me, for the baby. Stop letting silence write the story." Scrappy finally sat upright, leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes locked on his own reflection in the polished table. "I ain't never stopped caring. But the way we hurt each other, we broke the thing we kept trying to fix. And I ain't proud, but I also can't keep pretending I didn't move on." The words were heavy, clumsy, but honest. For the first time in hours, the room exhaled a fraction of its tension. Jay reached across, rested a hand on his shoulder. "Not romantic, grounding. Then you need to build something steady. For them kids, for this one coming. For yourself. 'Cause right now you're standing in pieces. Scrappy gave a half laugh, half sigh. Feels like I've been standing in pieces since before the wedding even ended. The producer finally stepped in, not to direct, but to check. Voice soft like a teacher after a school fight. Do you guys want a break? Jay shook her head. No, I want to finish this. On camera. No cuts, no edits that make me look like I'm bragging or make her look crazy. Just truth. Scrappy stared at her, surprised. You sure? That's a lot of eyes. I'm carrying a whole person, she said with a dry little smile. I think I can handle some eyes. They both laughed. The first sound all night that wasn't edged with pain, and just like that, a sliver of humanity cracked open through the mess. Not resolution, not peace, but an acknowledgement that three people were now tied together by something bigger than betrayal. A child, a city, a legacy written on camera. Back outside, word was already spreading. Somebody's cousin who worked catering had texted somebody's sister who tweeted the scene. And within an hour, #ScrappyBaby was trending, along with #Bambi deserves better and #ATL reality check. Inside the lounge. Jay leaned back, resting a hand on her belly again. You think she'll ever forgive you? She'll ever forgive you? Scrappy didn't answer right away. He just stared at the condensation sliding down his untouched glass of water. Then, finally, quietly, she might forgive me. She'll never forget. And that's what's gonna hurt forever. The cameras zoomed. Slowly out, catching the weight of a man and a woman sitting not as villains or victims, but as two people who had stepped into a story without a map, without armor. And without the luxury of privacy, the city would keep talking. The blogs would keep spinning. The fans would keep choosing sides. But in that room, for that hour, it wasn't about followers or edits or ratings. It was just two lives colliding with the messy physics of regret and responsibility. #Bambi, #Lil Scrappy, #LavandHipHopATL, #ATL drama at VH1, at LavandHipHopATL, at Adisobam, at RealisGroupium. Didn't go home right away. The cameras followed at a distance as she paced the parking lot, phone in hand, screen lighting up with messages she wasn't reading. Producers gave her space, the kind of space you give someone who is still deciding whether they want to scream, cry, or disappear. When she finally slid into the back seat of a black SUV, she exhaled like someone pulling air out of a wound. A mic still clipped to her jacket caught the quiet words. She spoke more to herself than to anyone. We keep ending. Up in the same circle. Different faces, same cuts. Inside the lounge, Scrappy was still with Jay, but the conversation had shifted. Without Bambi across from him, the guardrails fell off. The talk wasn't calm anymore. It was confessional. I don't even know when. We started breaking each other, Scrappy said, voice low. Like he was speaking into a confessional booth instead of a reality set. Maybe it was the constant cameras. Maybe it was us thinking we could fix trust with more TV. Jay listened without flinching. You two were fire. You could see it even through the edits. But fire burns. Sometimes it burns down everything. You thought was safe. Scrappy nodded slowly, eyes distant. She held me down when the music slowed up, when the streets got quieter. I wasn't always grateful. That's the part that eats me. And there it was, the guilt, the part viewers rarely get. Not just the betrayal, but the regret that tastes like metal in your mouth and follows you even when the lights go off. Outside, Bambi was on the phone now, finally answering a call from a friend who'd been blowing her up. He didn't just move on, she said, voice steady but tight. He made a whole new chapter without even finishing mine. The friend said something the mic didn't catch. Bambi answered, no, I didn't cry. I wanted to. But I ain't. Giving them that? Not on camera. Not like this. That single sentence hit social media like a brick. Fans clipped it, subtitled it, turned it into a TikTok sound. #NotOnCamera trended within an hour, A rallying cry for anyone who's ever had to swallow pain in public just to keep a little dignity. Back in the lounge, Jay reached across again. This time not to comfort, but to anchor. "You're going?" "To co-parent," she said. "You have to clean this up." Not just for her, for the kids. This isn't just a headline. It's their family tree. Scrappy nodded, rubbing his temples like the weight of 1,000 decisions was pressing on one fragile spot. "I know. I never wanted it like this. I wanted grown-up peace. Instead, I got a new war." The war wasn't just emotional, it was logistical. Shared custody schedules, overlapping birthdays, holidays with overlapping families. All of it now carried the texture of betrayal. Bambi, now at home, sat in a quiet living room, cameras catching only fragments of her face. In soft light, "It's not even about him anymore," she said finally, looking off camera. "It's about how I heal from someone making me feel replaceable while I was still bleeding." She paused, fingers tapping her thigh like she was trying to drum the ache out of her body. "I gave years to a man who couldn't even give me the decency of a pause before he started over. And now I'm supposed to clap for a baby like I'm a guest at a show I never got invited to." That raw honesty hit different. It wasn't a punchline, wasn't a meltdown. It was a mirror held up to every messy breakup where one person moved on like it was a sprint while the other was still crawling. Twitter exploded with empathy threads, think pieces about emotional labor in high-profile relationships, even podcasts, dissecting how reality TV magnifies every wound until it feels biblical. Meanwhile, producers were quietly ecstatic, not because of the pain, but because the authenticity was electric. You can script drama. You can't script heartbreak that feels like it's breathing through the screen. Scrappy finally left the lounge. "Hello, hoodie up." Paparazzi snapped photos like vultures circling a confession booth. One shot caught him wiping his face with his sleeve. By midnight, everyone in Atlanta had an opinion. And everyone online had a side. And the story had officially moved from messy breakup to cultural moment. Hashtag Bambi, hashtag Lil Scrappy, hashtag Love and Hip Hop, ATL, hashtag Reality Unfiltered at VH1. At Love and Hip Hop ATL, at Addis Dubom, at Real Lil Scrappy the next morning. The air in Atlanta wasn't just humid, it was thick with speculation. Radio shows opened with snippets of the confrontation, replayed like it was breaking news. Clips hit Shade Room, Hollywood Unlocked, small blogs that feed big networks. Everyone had the same question. How does a family recover when the next chapter comes wrapped in a baby announcement? Scrappy woke up to 3 missed calls from his mom, 1 from his manager, and dozens from people he hadn't heard from in months. The industry runs on scandal like it runs on beats. Everybody wants a piece, a quote, a reaction. Seat close enough to say they saw it happen live. At the Frost Bistro. 2 tables over from regulars who'd been eating grits there since before Love and Hip Hop ATL even existed. A woman read the story out loud to her friend and whispered, "Bam, deserved better. But that baby ain't got nothing to do with the mess." That sentiment echoed across timelines. The public's outrage was loud, but so was a strange kind of protective instinct over the unborn child. A collective reminder that somewhere beneath hashtags and retweets, a human being was coming into this world. Meanwhile, Jay still adjusting to the sudden shift from private relationship to headline. EVENT stared at her phone like it was a ticking device. "I don't want my baby to be a storyline," she told a producer in a quiet off-camera conversation that still made its way into a leaked audio clip. "I just wanted peace." But peace don't sell. Scrappy tried to do damage control. A live stream later that day felt like a bad idea, but management pushed. He logged on anyway, hoodie up, voice low. "I ain't got no excuses. What y'all saw was raw, but it wasn't the whole truth. I love my kids, all my kids, and that ain't changing. What I don't love is everybody turning this into a circus when real lives are involved." The comments went nuclear. Some praised the honesty, others dragged him for sounding more worried about optics than wounds. This man talking like he ain't the one who lit the fire. One comment read, shared over 12,000 times. Bambi stayed quiet, which only amplified her. Power. In the social media economy, silence speaks louder than any caption. Fans interpreted every Instagram story, a coffee cup, a gym mirror, a lyric screenshot like a coded message. Theories grew like vines. Maybe she'd moved to LA. Maybe she was negotiating her own spin-off. Maybe she'd write a book. Behind the scenes, lawyers started circling. Joint custody, child support adjustments, non-disparagement clauses. Reality television may look chaotic, but when real contracts are at stake, it becomes a chessboard. Scrappy's camp wanted privacy agreements. Bambi's camp wanted accountability. Jay wanted safety for herself, her baby, and a life that wasn't forever in the comments section. By day 3, the narrative was no longer just about betrayal or drama. It became about legacy. Fans debated not just the scandal, but what it said about cycles, the patterns in ATL hip-hop culture where love, loyalty, and survival often crash into one another at full speed. And then, a subtle shift. Empathy started to bleed into the noise. A thread went viral that night. A woman who'd been in Bambi's shoes wrote, "You can love someone and still leave. You can wish them joy even as you hold your own pain. That's real strength. Don't let the world turn your healing into entertainment." The post caught fire. Celebrities reposted it. Quietly, even Jay liked it. The city kept buzzing, but the story stopped feeling like a car crash you can't look away from. It started feeling like a case study in human mess where love meets timing, ego meets cameras, and children grow up in the echo of decisions made too fast, too loud. And to public.hash Bambi #Lil Scrappy #ATL reality #love and hip hop ATL #pregnancy drama at VH1 at love and hip hop ATL at Adiztabam at Lil Scrappy. First week after the confrontation felt like a month. The city stopped whispering and started moving on to the D. Next headline. But for the 3 people at the center, the noise never really faded. It just got quieter in public and louder in private. Bambi finally called her attorney. The conversation was short, direct, businesslike. "I don't want a war," she said. "I want my boundaries respected." The lawyer reminded her that the best protection sometimes is a piece of paper, not another fight. They talked custody schedules, media clauses, even down to who could post photos of the kids and when. It was cold, maybe, but necessary. In a quiet hotel room across town, Jay sat on the edge of the bed with a notepad. It wasn't for TV. It wasn't for Instagram. It was for herself, a list of what she could control: her health, the baby's health, her work, her family. Everything else, the blogs, the comments, the distorted screenshots, she wrote under a separate column. Things I released, Scrappy floated between both worlds. Studio sessions by day, lawyers and PR meetings by night. It was tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. In one meeting, his manager laid it out like a producer pitching a plot. "If you don't own this story, somebody else will. You need to speak on co-parenting, on respect, on growth. Not as an apology tour, as a man growing up in public." Scrappy didn't answer right away. He just stared at the floor, then said, "I don't want to turn my family into content anymore. We already gave them enough." The team nodded but kept pushing. "Control the narrative," they said. "Don't hide from it." A few nights later, Bambi met with 2 close friends in a dimly lit restaurant. It was off camera, private, but one photo leaked 3 women laughing hard, glasses mid-toast. The caption someone added later, "Healing looks good on her." The post hit 50,000 likes in a day. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was human. People wanted her to win, not just to survive. Jay booked a prenatal appointment quietly. The doctor's office was calm, clinical, away from the noise. For the first time in weeks, the sound she heard wasn't gossip. It was a heartbeat, a new one. The room went still, and a small smile finally cracked her face. It wasn't a victory over anyone. It was a moment of peace in a life that had become anything but. Meanwhile, producers debated how to handle the footage. Too much drama looked exploitative. Too little felt dishonest. They cut a rough draft of the episode that balanced pain with perspective, a rare thing in a genre built on cliffhangers and explosive. Confessionals. Fans kept speculating. Would there be a sit-down reunion? A mediated conversation on or off? Camera? Was there even a path back to neutral? Behind closed doors, there was progress. Bambi and Jay agreed through intermediaries that the kids should never feel like pawns. They weren't friends. They weren't enemies. They were two women navigating a script no one wrote, but everyone watched. Scrappy, for his part, started therapy. Not because a contract told him to, but because somewhere between the late night arguments and the trending hashtags, he realized he didn't know how to be a man who broke cycles instead of repeating them. The first session was awkward. The second cracked something open. The third, he cried. For the first time in years, no camera caught it, no producer scripted it, but that moment mattered more than any viral clip. It was the start of a man trying to build something better from the rubble of his own choices. By week 2, the noise had softened. Not gone, just quieter. The world moved on, but those involved didn't forget. They couldn't. They lived it. But healing, like drama, is contagious. And somewhere in the city that made their lives a spectacle, 3 separate people began piecing together a quieter, steadier version of themselves. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a twist ending. But it was honest. #Bambi, #Lil Scrappy, #ATL healing. #LHHATL at VH1, at LHHATL, at Addis Thubam, at Real Lil Scrappy 2 months later. Atlanta looked the same on the surface. Traffic, heat, music leaking out of car windows. But for 3 people, it felt like a new city. It's not because of geography, because of gravity. The weight of everything that happened had shifted. Bambi started showing up to events again. Not the ones designed to spark gossip, not launch parties, not dinners with cameras planted like landmines. Just normal things. Her son's soccer game, a cousin's graduation, quiet dinner with her dad. A paparazzi still tried, but the photos that made it out weren't dramatic. They were boring and boring. After the firestorm was a kind of blessing. Lil Scrappy's social media changed too. The captions got longer, but not self-pitying. He posted a picture of his kids, all of them in one frame. No hashtags, no tags, just the words. They didn't ask for none of this. They just need us steady. The comments exploded, but this time not with flames, with nods, with people saying, "This is growth." J kept the lowest profile. Her pregnancy progressed quietly under blankets of family support. Away from flashing lights and lens caps clicking like tiny judgments. But one night, she posted a sonogram photo on her private account. No gender reveal, no stage shoot, just a blurry black and white outline of a new human on the way. Captioned simply, "We're okay." And that was the theme now. Not perfect, not reconciled. It's not healed like a clean scar. It's just okay. Producers floated the idea of a special. A round table with Bambi, Scrappy, and Jay. No yelling, no wine throws, just a conversation. For weeks, everyone said no. Too raw, too soon. Too many cameras already. But eventually, through lawyers and mutual friends, a different idea emerged. A closed-door meeting. No cameras, no contracts. Just 3 people and a mediator. The meeting happened in a quiet office downtown. No leaks, no sneak shots. Set inside hasn't been made public, and maybe that's the best sign of all. Some parts of healing don't belong to strangers. When they walked out, they didn't look like friends. They didn't look like enemies either. They looked like 3 people tired of bleeding in public, ready to stop performing pain like it was part of the job. By the time the baby was born, the story had lost its teeth. It wasn't a trending topic anymore. It was a birth announcement that quietly sat at the top of a feed. Liked not because it was shocking, but because it was human. Bambi liked the post. No caption, no comment, just a heart emoji. And the internet? Ruthless, cynical, quick to turn pain into memes. Froze for a second. That single click felt like a new page turning. For a culture addicted to spectacle, it was almost disappointing. No blow-ups, no revenge arcs, no dramatic walk-offs. Just people doing the hard, boring work of not making things worse. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do in a world that profits off your chaos is choose peace anyway. And that, maybe, is the real story. #Bambi, #Lil Scrappy, #healing in public, #love and hip hop, ATL. At VH1, at Love and Hip Hop ATL, at a Dizabomb, at Real Old Scrappy End. Now it's on you. You've seen the highs, the hurt, the mess, and the quiet rebuild. Real lives, real consequences. No edit can clean the weight of what just happened. So, what do you think? Did Bambi show the strength you expected, or did the silence speak, louder than any clapback ever could? Did Scrappy finally step up, or is this just another chapter in a long cycle that never truly ends? And what about Jay? Did she deserve the smoke, or just a chance to protect her child in a storm she didn't create? Drop your thoughts in the comments, not just the hot takes, but the human ones. Hit that like if you respect the growth. Subscribe if you want the uncut truth every time. And share this with someone who's ever had to turn pain into power. #Bambi, #Lil Scrappy. #ATL Healing, #Love and Hip Hop ATL at VH1 at a Diztobam. At Real Scrappy,